My life was a little different. I lived in southern Mexico in the state of Chiapas for almost 9.5, 10 years off and on. At one point, I decided to just return to the United States. It was really, really hard because I had really become accustomed to a different way of life in Mexico. A little slower, more thoughtful, and vowed I would never live in San Antonio. It was just a big city and da 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 da. Anyway, so I end up living in San Antonio. You know, you make your life decisions and life makes decisions for you. And I began a museum career. I'm just going to be real. I'm a brother from Detroit. That wasn't really on my plate at all. But I started just a regular position there, but some things happened. And because I'm bilingual and a lot of other things, they asked me if I would take over a management role. I ended up falling in love with the art, with the people. And so as time went on, I developed new dreams, new goals. I didn't have any super long-term goals other than to at some point return to Mexico. That next year, I noticed that I was having problems walking. My feet were hurting, my lower back was hurting a lot. I would be just so stiff in the morning. The security staff would sometimes see me walking down the side of the museum, and they would literally see me hobbling. So they would meet me at the door with a wheelchair and wheel me to my desk. And it just became progressively worse. So I was referred to a rheumatologist. She said, "I'm sorry to inform you that you have ankylosing spondylitis." Ankylosing spondylitis is an autoimmune disease known as an inflammatory disease. So it's a form of arthritis. So fast forwarding a few years, I think it was the second or third year, the treatment plan I was on, I took injections every month, twice a month for AS. But at some point, I don't know why, I don't know when, I developed classic migraines with aura. At this point, I am so tired. I've been working. I decide that I'm going to resign from the museum for a while. I'm going to go to Mexico, rest, recuperate, because I've been going straight for 6, 7 years. I'm tired. I never took a break, even going to treatments and doctors and this and that. So I'm planning this. And then one day, I'm at home in the evening. I didn't feel like cooking. I said, well, I'll go right around the corner here, either go to the Chinese restaurant or I'll go, grab a sub from over here. So I walk out my apartment and I'm realizing something is wrong with all the lights. All the lights are just wrong. The back of the city buses, I'm seeing like 18 lights on the back on. They're only like 4 or 5. The street lights are just like sunbeams. And I'm like, oh no, something is wrong. But I said, I'm probably just tired. We just came off a major event at the museum, da-da-da-da. The next morning I got up, stretched a little bit in the bed, got up and immediately fell to the right. Just completely fell, banged my head, everything. And it felt like something pulled me to the right. And I was like, okay, I'm just really too tired. I said, it'll be better because this has happened before. And it lasted, that feeling, that dizziness lasted for about 4 or 5 days. But I was never quite the same. I could never bounce back. I always felt like off, dizzy. Flash forward, I'm like prepared to leave for Mexico, go to the airport. I'm like, something is not right, but I'm going to go ahead and get on this plane. Sitting at the gate, something just goes wrong. Everything is spinning, so I'm having a vertigo attack. But on top of that, I'm having a panic attack. So I collapsed at the gate. Paramedics had to come. And from that point forward, my life has never been the same. It was the most challenging point in my life, especially when it first started, because as I said, I was alone for 2.5 months. I had no idea what was happening. Went to ENTs, urgent care, tried to cross the border and go to a cheaper ENT, but it served no purpose to pay for things because I was not getting answers. I eventually came here to Dallas-Fort Worth with my brother because they were so worried about me being alone through all this and not knowing what's, you're like, am I dying? Do I have a tumor? And I came up here and I saw an ENT, and he was like the second one that said vestibular migraines. And because of the duration, they also said triple PD. I was supposed to do, of course, some other testing, but at this point, I couldn't afford it. I had spent everything. So at that point, I said, you know what? I'm going to have to live with this. That was kind of disheartening at first. It's like, I have to live with this. But it's fine. I have really bad days, but they become further apart. But when they do happen, it's like, oh God, this is really, but I've adjusted to it, and you have to constantly do that.
Today is a day of bed. Yesterday was headache, which I normally don't get, but for some reason I did, and the dizziness today is really overwhelming. So this is one of those things that I live with all the time, especially during severe weather changes, barometric pressure changes. It becomes overwhelming, so I spend a great deal of my time in bed.
I did apply for disability. I was denied because I applied on my own, just didn't know any better. Denied, and then found a lawyer and filed an appeal. That was just denied 1 or 2 weeks ago, which the lawyer's office said that's pretty normal. So the next step is a hearing. One of the things about disability, Social Security disability here in the United States, they're very particular that you're following treatment plans and going to see doctors and this and that. For me, it's challenging because I no longer have the health insurance. So the only way a male of 54 can get Medicaid in the state of Texas is if you're approved for Social Security disability, and I have not been. Through the disability process, one of the disability doctors had made a note. We think you need to go to this behavioral place and just have them do another assessment, even though my primary care doctor had given me a diagnosis of generalized anxiety disorder. So I went in for the assessment, came back with generalized anxiety disorder, anxiety panic disorder, PTSD. And she said, you have bipolar disorder. And when I heard it, I was like, what? It took me a while to accept that. Like I said, on top of everything, I'm a child of the 70s and 80s. You didn't really go to counseling, especially being Black in Detroit. Mom and Dad were trying to keep food on the table. They weren't trying to send you. That was not to be funny, but that was for the white folks. We didn't do all that. So it's just, I think it all comes back. I can't say 100%, oh, this vestibular is because of trauma and stress, but I know it's in there. So.
It's a beautiful day. Unfortunately, I'm having a vestibular attack. Sorry. Yeah, that's what happens. I do have some medication in, so I'm just out here trying to enjoy the day.
Especially if you're dealing with multiple chronic illnesses at one time, or other life traumas or challenges and stuff like that. You've made it this far in life. If you're like me and you're 50, 40, 30, you've made it this far, you've already been through a lot of stuff in some kind of way. Each time you found a way. And if you have the resources, find someone to talk to. Don't feel bad about doing that, because you will need that support. Vestibular disorders are hard. Recently, when I was on a podcast, And I went back and listened to the podcast myself, and I was like, whoa, I have really been through a lot. It's not been easy. The one thing about me, though, I always try to find some good in everything. You ever see where it's like a little tiny flower just in a crack by itself? I always find them. That's me. Everything around me says there's no growth. There's no possibility. Yet still, I'm just a wiggling up, hoping nothing comes to crush me. I take my little nieces and nephews walking sometime, and they'll see the flower too. And I'm like, isn't that pretty? And they'll go to rest. No. Let it live. Let it grow. Don't take it out. Let it grow. It's found some way to survive there. Let it be. And so that's how I feel about myself. But no, it hasn't been rosy and bright. But I've tried to find those roses.